Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at Sullivan Associates, the insurance brokerage where Marcus had worked for nearly 5 years. The spring air in Atlanta carried that familiar mix of magnolia blooms and urban energy that he'd grown to love since moving here from Chicago. 5 years ago, he'd left behind a corporate grind, where 60-hour weeks were considered light duty. His current position was infinitely more relaxed, but the agency maintained an excellent reputation that brought in enough clients to provide Marcus and his family with a comfortable living. The office occupied the second floor of a renovated brick building in Virginia Highland, housing 5 brokers and 10 support staff. Marcus genuinely enjoyed his work here. During his early years in insurance, he discovered he had a natural ability to connect with people. He particularly appreciated that he didn't need to rely on high-pressure sales tactics. People needed auto and home insurance, and as long as his company offered competitive rates, the coverage practically sold itself. It was the customer relationships that kept Marcus engaged. People appreciated his laid-back approach. He invested considerable time simply staying in touch with clients, ensuring his company met their evolving needs. Although Marcus spent most of his day on the phone, today's call was definitely unusual. Sullivan Associates. This is Marcus speaking. Mr. Sullivan, my name is Jennifer Walsh. I was wondering if we could meet sometime today. Marcus straightened up, always happy to meet a potential client. Absolutely. Would you like to come by the office this afternoon? Actually, I don't want to buy insurance, Mr. Sullivan. But I do have some information you should know about. You don't know me, but this is a personal matter. It is not about business, and I am not selling anything. Could you meet with me for just a few minutes? Marcus paused, his curiosity piqued. It struck him as strange, perhaps even risky, to meet with someone like this. But the call was intriguing, and over the years, his work had led him to make quite a few unusual acquaintances. This Jennifer sounded articulate and sincere, despite being secretive. I suppose I could do that. Where did you have in mind? There is a coffee shop called Highland Grounds on Virginia Avenue. Do you know it? Sure. I pass it every day on my way home. Would 3 o'clock work for you? I'll be wearing a green blouse. All right, Miss Walsh. I'll see you then. Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon trying to focus on client calls. But Jennifer's mysterious request kept creeping into his thoughts. What kind of personal information could a complete stranger possibly have for him? Highland Grounds was one of those neighborhood places that had survived the chain store invasion, a sanctuary where locals could actually sit and relax with friends in comfortable, overstuffed chairs. A few tables and chairs accommodated those who needed to work. When Marcus arrived at 3, the place was nearly empty except for 3 college students, hunched over laptops, completely absorbed in their studies. None of them looked up when he walked in. He paused near the entrance, scanning the room. Jennifer had been easy to spot a woman in her mid-40s sitting in the far corner, wearing the promised green blouse. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she had the kind of composed appearance that suggested a professional background. Marcus walked over to her. Hello, I am Marcus Sullivan. He extended his hand. Jennifer Walsh, she replied, offering a slight smile but not quite meeting his eyes. Would you like some coffee before we talk? No thanks, I am fine. Marcus settled into the chair across from her, positioning himself so he could make a quick exit if needed. Years of dealing with people had taught him the value of easy escape routes. I have to say, I am curious about your phone call. It was pretty cryptic. How can I help you? Marcus could see that Jennifer was nervous. Her eyes searched his face for several seconds, as if she was trying to gauge his character without speaking. He offered a reassuring smile. I don't need anything from you, Mr. Sullivan, but I do have some information you should be aware of. She hesitated, then continued. We don't know each other. I don't think we've ever met, but our spouses both work for Meridian Construction. The conversation paused. Marcus felt an uneasy feeling settle in his stomach. Jennifer's expression showed deep concern, maybe even fear. and that look made him increasingly uncomfortable. They stared at each other for a moment, both trying to find their footing in this suddenly tense atmosphere. Jennifer started to speak, paused as if searching for the right words. Then her voice became more determined. "I'll get straight to the point, Mr. Sullivan. I have some bad news for you. I brought you here today to show you evidence from a private investigation firm I recently hired." She fell silent for a few seconds, giving Marcus time to process this information. His previous unease suddenly intensified into something approaching fear. What had been a curious conversation was now heading in directions he didn't want to explore. He looked intently into Jennifer's eyes as if trying to read her words before she spoke them. He couldn't see her words, but he could clearly see her sadness. "What kind of evidence?" Marcus asked. "Well, as I mentioned, I know your wife works for Meridian Construction. My husband Brian is the vice president of marketing for that company." She paused, took a deep breath. "I am sorry to be the one to tell you this, but your wife and my husband are having an affair." Suddenly the room seemed to shrink around Marcus. His eyes could still see, but there was nothing around him except a rushing sensation. His brain seemed to race at 1,000,000 miles an hour, while simultaneously fixating on a single thought: is Rachel cheating? For several moments, his eyes stared into space. Whatever visual information was entering his field of vision simply wasn't registering. After what felt like an eternity, Marcus's consciousness began working again. He raised his eyes to Jennifer's, searching her gaze for understanding, but he still saw only sadness. He wasn't sure he could hold a coherent conversation. When Jennifer had first read the private investigator's report, it had broken her heart. Now her heart was breaking again as she watched Marcus's confusion and pain. "What do you mean by an affair?" Marcus finally managed. "What were they doing? For how long?" "The private investigator I hired believes the affair has been going on for about a year. They got their information from a couple of Meridian employees who work with Brian and Rachel." Marcus realized that Jennifer had clearly done her homework. She knew his wife's name, their family situation, probably even where he worked. That fact made him feel vulnerable and exposed. Apparently they have lunch together at least once a week. It didn't take the investigator long to determine they were going to a hotel near the office. Jennifer reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope, sliding it across the table. "Here is everything. I don't have pictures of them together in compromising situations. But there are recordings, phone calls, text messages, and email evidence. My private investigator has been very thorough." "Oh my God," was all Marcus could manage. It was all too real and happening too fast. He stared at the envelope. The name Atlanta Private Investigations was prominently displayed on the front. He had an idea of what was inside but couldn't bring himself to take it. Jennifer noticed him looking at the envelope. "It is all in there," she said quietly. Marcus didn't know what to say. From Jennifer's demeanor, so serious, her sadness so obvious, he realized what she was telling him must be true. He couldn't believe his wife could cheat on him, and that she had been doing so for an extended period. "A whole year?" he said aloud, not really addressing Jennifer. "How could I not have noticed? There must have been signs." "I know what you mean. I didn't suspect Brian either. We've always been close. I was as shocked as you are, Mr. Sullivan. I only hired the investigator because someone from Meridian sent me an anonymous letter. Please call me Marcus. And may I call you Jennifer? We seem to have something unfortunate in common." "Of course, Marcus. I was planning to confront Brian immediately, but after thinking about it, I wanted you to know first. I think we should coordinate our approach." This statement somewhat shocked Marcus. "Coordinate? What do you have in mind?" "Well, I keep thinking about this cruise they're planning. If we confront them now, they'll just deny everything and be more careful. But if we let them think they've gotten away with it..." Jennifer's voice trailed off, but her eyes showed a calculating look that Marcus hadn't seen before. "Okay, sure, Marcus. I can wait a few days after all. I've known or suspected for weeks. But I don't want to wait too long. The investigators told me that Brian and Rachel are planning a trip together in a couple of weeks, and I'll be damned if I am going to let them go off like lovebirds." "Oh wow, that must be the conference Rachel's been talking about for the last month." When is it? I don't know if there is going to be an actual conference, but the private investigators said they have a 4-day adults only cruise booked starting on the 14th of this month. Marcus was still in a state of shock. A cruise. It appears so. They've been planning this for weeks. Marcus stared at the envelope again. Jennifer, this is... I thought Rachel and I had a good marriage. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but I never imagined. Marcus, I understand. Brian and I have been married for 26 years. I thought we were solid too. Jennifer's voice carried a mixture of anger and profound sadness. But apparently, we were both wrong about the people we married. They sat in uncomfortable silence for several minutes. The college students continued their studies, oblivious to the personal catastrophe unfolding in the corner of the coffee shop. What are you going to do? Marcus finally asked. Jennifer's expression hardened. I am going to divorce him. There is no way I can stay married to a man who cheats on me. I am angry, Marcus. I want to make him pay for this. I'd love to get back at both of them, but I can't figure out how. I guess I'll just confront him and file for divorce. He probably won't even care. He and Rachel will probably ride off into the sunset while you and I get left behind. She leaned forward slightly. If you have any ideas on how to make them pay for this, please let me know. Maybe we can work together on something. Marcus looked at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. Jennifer was clearly a strong woman who had been deeply hurt. I honestly don't know what I am going to do yet. It is all so confusing right now. I need time to process this. I understand, Marcus. I am sorry to bring you such devastating news today. Jennifer stood up from her chair. Here is my number. Call me if you need anything, or if you want to talk. I'll be in touch with you soon. After Jennifer left the cafe, Marcus sat alone for several more minutes watching the students work. What the hell am I supposed to do now, he thought. He stared at the envelope, knowing that looking inside was the last thing he wanted to do, but understanding it was a necessary step forward. He reached across the table and began pulling out the papers, chuckling humorlessly at the irony. Looks like I am doing homework just like everyone else here, he thought. But I have a feeling this homework is going to change my life. His thoughts turned to the children. It was going to shatter their world. That is when he fully realized that if what Jennifer had said was true, if this envelope proved Rachel was having an affair, divorce was inevitable. He simply couldn't stay with a cheating wife. Marcus left work early that day, telling his colleagues he had a family matter to handle. Rachel wasn't expecting him home until his usual time around 6. So he had a quiet house to process everything he had learned. He sat in his car in the driveway and read through the report with all its disturbing details. It took him almost 2 hours to go through everything. There was substantial evidence, recordings of conversations that had been transcribed, several photos of Brian and Rachel holding hands and kissing, pictures of them entering and leaving hotels together. All of this made Marcus physically ill. By the time he finished reading, everything was crystal clear. Rachel was not the loving, caring wife and mother he thought she was. She was selfish, dishonest, and had been deceiving him for over a year. Not only was she seeing Brian at least once a week, but they had been together on 2 business trips as well. Marcus felt like he knew her better than she knew herself, but in truth he realized he had no idea what kind of person she really was. 7 years earlier, Marcus and Rachel had met at their company's holiday party. She had seemed so genuine, standing with her friends while other men approached their group. When Marcus asked her to dance, she was genuinely surprised that he had chosen her. That night had led to their whirlwind romance, their marriage, and what Marcus had thought was their happy life together. But apparently, it had all been an illusion. Present day, Jennifer sat in the living room of the large house she shared with Brian in Buckhead, staring at the flames in their fireplace. After 26 years of marriage and 2 grown children, she had thought their relationship was solid, but the anonymous letter about Brian's affair had shattered that illusion. She had always been a hands-on mother, and when their children left home, she felt somewhat lost. Brian had become increasingly absorbed in his work, and their conversations had become limited to logistics. She had never suspected infidelity until she smelled unfamiliar perfume on his shirt, and received that anonymous note saying simply, "Ask Brian about Rachel." That is when she decided to hire investigators. The private detectives hadn't taken long to gather comprehensive evidence of the affair. Brian and Rachel had been careless, meeting regularly for lunch and spending time at a hotel near the Meridian construction offices. The investigators had documented everything with photos, recordings, and copies of text messages and emails. Looking at the flames in her fireplace, Jennifer felt a mixture of anger and profound sadness. 26 years of marriage, and this was how it would end. But she was also feeling something else, a desire for justice. Brian and Rachel had betrayed their spouses, their families, and their commitments. They deserved consequences for their actions. Meanwhile, across town in Virginia Highland, Marcus was still sitting in his car, having finished reading through the investigative report. The evidence was overwhelming and devastating. Photos of Rachel and Brian holding hands at restaurants, entering hotels together, text messages planning their meetings. It was all there in excruciating detail. Marcus felt a complex mixture of emotions: betrayal, anger, sadness, and underneath it all, a strange sense of relief that he finally understood why their marriage had felt different lately. Rachel had been distant, distracted, always on her phone. He had attributed it to work stress, but now he knew the truth. He looked at their house, the brick Tudor they had bought 3 years ago when his insurance business really took off. Rachel had loved the neighborhood, the tree-lined streets, the proximity to downtown. They had talked about growing old here, watching Emma and Tyler grow up in these rooms. Emma was 7 and Tyler was 5. They would be devastated by a divorce. Marcus felt his chest tighten thinking about explaining this to them, about the custody arrangements, about splitting their family in half. But he also knew he couldn't stay married to someone who had betrayed him so completely. The Rachel he thought he knew, the woman he had fallen in love with at that Christmas party 7 years ago, apparently didn't exist. This woman who could lie to his face while carrying on a year-long affair was a stranger to him. Marcus took a deep breath and walked into his house. Rachel was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Emma was working on homework at the kitchen table, and Tyler was playing with Legos in the adjacent family room. It looked like a perfect domestic scene, but now Marcus saw it differently. This was all built on lies. "Hi honey, you are early tonight," Rachel said, looking up from the stove with a smile. "Dinner will be ready in about 20 minutes. Marcus studied her face, looking for signs of guilt or deception. She looked the same as always, her light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, her brown eyes bright and welcoming. But now he knew what she was capable of. "How was your day?" he asked, settling into a chair at the kitchen table next to Emma. "Oh, the usual meetings, spreadsheets, more meetings. Brian had us working on some new compliance reports for that government contract." She said Brian's name so casually without even a flicker of awareness. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. She was so comfortable with the deception. "Dad, can you help me with this math problem?" Emma asked, sliding her homework over to him. "Of course, sweetheart." Marcus focused on his daughter's worksheet, grateful for the distraction. As he helped Emma work through a multiplication problem, he found himself wondering how much their world was about to change. After dinner, Marcus helped with baths and bedtime stories while Rachel cleaned up the kitchen. It was their normal routine, but everything felt surreal. How do you act normal when you've just discovered your spouse has been living a double life? When the children were finally asleep, Marcus and Rachel settled on the couch to watch television. Rachel curled up next to him, resting her head on his shoulder. A week ago, this would have felt comfortable and loving. Now it felt like a performance. "Rachel," Marcus said carefully, "that conference you mentioned next week, the one in Miami, is that still happening?" She murmured, not looking away from the television. "Should be good. Brian thinks the new accounting software training will really help with our efficiency." Another casual mention of Brian's name. Marcus wondered if she even realized she was doing it. "Will you be working closely with Brian on this?" he asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Probably. He is leading the session on integration protocols." Rachel sat up and looked at him. "Why, is something wrong?" Marcus looked into her eyes. those brown eyes he had fallen in love with, and saw what looked like genuine confusion. Either she was an exceptional actress, or she truly believed she was concealing her affair successfully. "No, nothing's wrong. I just want to make sure I understand your schedule so I can plan with the kids." Rachel smiled and settled back against his shoulder. "You are sweet. It is just 4 days. I'll be back Friday evening." 4 days on a cruise with her lover, Marcus thought. 4 days while he took care of their children, and she pretended to be at a conference. That night, Marcus lay awake long after Rachel fell asleep beside him. He stared at the ceiling, processing everything he had learned and trying to decide what to do next. Confronting her immediately felt too impulsive. He needed a plan. He thought about Jennifer's suggestion of getting revenge. Part of him wanted to expose Brian and Rachel publicly, to make them face consequences for their betrayal. But another part of him just wanted to protect Emma and Tyler from as much pain as possible. By morning, Marcus had made his decision. He wouldn't confront Rachel yet. Instead, he would let her go on this cruise. And while she was gone, he would prepare for the next phase of his life. He would consult with a divorce attorney, gather his financial documents, and figure out the best way to tell the children. Rachel had chosen to blow up their marriage. Now Marcus would choose how to handle the aftermath. The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Atlanta spring weather. Rachel was rushing around the kitchen, packing last-minute items for her trip, and making sure everything was organized for Marcus and the kids. "Emma's soccer practice is at 4 on Wednesday," she said, checking items off a list. "Tyler has that play date with Mason on Thursday, and I already confirmed with his mom. The parent-teacher conference got moved to next Monday. I'll reschedule when I get back." Marcus watched her efficient preparations with a mixture of admiration and disgust. She was an excellent mother and partner in all the practical aspects of life. But she was also a liar and a cheat. "Have a good trip," Marcus said as she gathered her luggage by the front door. Rachel walked over and kissed him goodbye. A normal, affectionate kiss between married couples. "I love you. I'll call tonight when I get settled." "I love you too," Marcus replied automatically, though the words felt strange in his mouth. After Rachel left, Marcus dropped the children at school and drove to his office. But instead of focusing on insurance policies and client calls, he spent the morning researching divorce attorneys and thinking about his conversation with Jennifer. Around noon, his phone rang. "Marcus, it is Jennifer Walsh. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" "Sure, Jennifer. What is on your mind?" "I wanted to let you know. I confronted Brian last night. It didn't go well." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "What happened?" "He denied everything at first, then got angry when I showed him some of the evidence. Finally, he admitted to the affair but tried to minimize it. Said it was just physical, that it didn't mean anything, that he never intended for it to go this far." "How did you respond?" Jennifer's laugh was bitter. "I told him that made it worse, not better. If he was going to risk our marriage, at least it should have been for something meaningful. But throwing away 26 years for what he calls just physical is even more insulting." Marcus found himself nodding. "What did he say to that?" "He tried to apologize, promised to end it, begged me to give him another chance. But Marcus, I just kept thinking about all the lies. All the times he looked me in the eye and lied. All the family dinners where he sat across from our children and pretended to be a devoted husband and father while he was betraying everything our family stands for. So what happens now? I am filing for divorce. I've already met with an attorney." Jennifer paused. "Marcus, there is something else I told Brian. I was going to inform you about the affair. He begged me not to, said it would destroy Rachel's family unnecessarily. Can you believe that? He is worried about protecting Rachel even after I've caught him." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. That is incredible." "I know, but here is the thing, Marcus. They're still planning to go on that cruise. Brian thinks that because I found out, he can somehow manage both situations. Convince me to stay quiet while he continues the affair. He actually asked me to wait until after their trip to make any decisions about our marriage." "You are kidding." "I wish I were. So I was thinking, What if we don't let them have their romantic getaway quite the way they planned? Marcus felt something shift inside him. What do you have in mind? Can you meet me again this afternoon? I have an idea, but I want to discuss it in person. They arranged to meet at the same coffee shop at 3 o'clock. Marcus spent the rest of the day in a strange state of anticipation. He found himself thinking about justice, about consequences, about making Brian and Rachel face the reality of what they had done. When he arrived at Highland Grounds, Jennifer was already waiting in the same corner chair. She looked different today, more determined, less sad. I am glad you came, she said as Marcus sat down. I've been thinking about this all day, and I have a proposal. I am listening. They think they're so clever, sneaking around, lying to us, making fools of us while they live out their fantasy. Well, what if we turned the tables? What if we made them the fools? Jennifer leaned forward. Marcus, they're going on this adults-only cruise thinking they've successfully deceived us. What if we let them think that right up until the moment their little fantasy world comes crashing down? Jennifer smiled for the first time since Marcus had met her. How tech-savvy are you, Marcus? As Jennifer outlined her plan, Marcus felt a sense of satisfaction growing inside him. It was elegant in its simplicity and perfect in its justice. Brian and Rachel wanted to humiliate their spouses by carrying on a public affair. Well, they would discover exactly how public an affair could become. By the time they finished talking, Marcus and Jennifer had become partners in something larger than divorce proceedings. They had become agents of consequence, determined to ensure that betrayal came with a price. The plan was set. In 5 days, Brian and Rachel would board their cruise ship thinking they had successfully deceived their spouses. They had no idea they were sailing directly into the storm they had created. Marcus drove home that evening feeling more purposeful than he had in months. For too long, he had been the unknowing victim of Rachel's deception. But that was about to change. Soon, Rachel and Brian would discover that actions have consequences, and betrayal comes with a price they hadn't anticipated paying. As he turned into his driveway, Marcus looked at his house with new eyes. This wasn't just the home he was about to lose, it was the launching point for the rest of his life. And that new life would begin with justice. The next few days passed in a strange haze of normal routine, mixed with secret preparation. Marcus went to work, helped the children with homework, and maintained the appearance of normalcy while Jennifer coordinated with the private investigators. They confirmed the cruise departure date, established communication protocols, and refined their plan. Marcus found himself studying Rachel more carefully during those days, looking for signs of guilt or anticipation about her upcoming conference. But she seemed genuinely excited about what she claimed was a professional opportunity, chattering about the new accounting software training and how it would benefit her career. 5 days later, Marcus stood at his bedroom window watching Rachel load her suitcase into the trunk of her Honda Accord. She was dressed in a casual travel outfit, jeans, a light sweater, and comfortable shoes for what she claimed was a business conference. But Marcus knew she was packing for 4 days of romance with Brian Walsh on an adults-only cruise ship. The morning sun cast long shadows across their front yard, and Marcus found himself memorizing the scene. This was the last morning their family would exist in its current form. By the time Rachel returned from her conference, everything would have changed forever. "Daddy, why does Mommy have to go away?" Emma asked, appearing at his elbow in her princess pajamas. Marcus knelt down to her level. "It is just for work, sweetheart. Mommy will be back on Friday." "But I don't want her to go," Emma said, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Marcus hugged his daughter tightly, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "I know, baby, I don't want her to go either." But even as he comforted Emma, Marcus felt a cold determination settling in his chest. Rachel had made her choice. Now she would live with the consequences. Downstairs, Rachel was doing her final check of the kitchen. She had prepared detailed notes about the children's schedules, emergency contacts, and meal preferences. Her organization would have been touching if Marcus didn't know she was using these domestic preparations to cover for her betrayal. "Marcus, honey, can you come down here for a minute?" Rachel called. He found her by the front door, looking beautiful and excited. There was a glow about her that he now realized had nothing to do with work enthusiasm. "I want to say goodbye properly," she said, stepping close to him. Marcus felt her hands on his chest, saw her looking up at him with those brown eyes he had once loved so much. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, not the perfunctory peck of a busy morning, but a real kiss, full of apparent affection. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. Marcus stared down at her, marveling at her ability to lie so completely. "Have a wonderful time, Rachel." Something flickered in her eyes, perhaps confusion at his choice of words. But then she smiled. "I'll call you tonight when I get settled in the hotel." Marcus watched from the doorway as Rachel backed out of their driveway and drove toward what she thought was her romantic escape. He remained there until her car disappeared around the corner, then quietly closed the door. The children were still in their pajamas, eating cereal and watching cartoons. For them, this was just another day when Mommy had to travel for work. They had no idea their world was about to change forever. Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table with his laptop. Jennifer had given him detailed instructions for their plan, and timing would be crucial. He opened his browser and navigated to the website for Carnival Cruise Lines. According to the private investigator's report, Rachel and Brian were boarded on the Seas of Paradise, a ship that marketed itself as an adults-only escape with intimate dining and romantic entertainment. Marcus felt his jaw tighten as he read the ship's promotional materials. While he was home taking care of their children, Rachel would be enjoying candlelit dinners and couples massages with her lover. His phone buzzed with a text message from Jennifer. "Just confirmed they're both on board. Photos coming in from our friends. Ready to begin." Marcus typed back, "Ready." The friends Jennifer referred to were the private investigators they had retained. For an additional fee, the investigators had agreed to continue surveillance during the cruise, sending real-time updates about Rachel and Brian's activities. Marcus's laptop chimed with an incoming email. The first batch of photos showed Rachel and Brian at the ship's departure, holding hands as they watched Atlanta disappear behind them. In one image, Brian had his arm around Rachel's waist as she leaned against the deck railing. They looked like a couple on their honeymoon. Marcus studied Rachel's face in the photos. She looked genuinely happy, more radiant than he had seen her in months. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She was happier with Brian than she had been with her own husband and children. His phone rang. "Marcus, it is Jennifer. Did you see the photos?" "I saw them. Are you okay? I know this can't be easy." Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing his emotions. "Actually, Jennifer, I think I am done being sad. I am angry now, and that feels much better." "Good. Anger is useful. Sadness just makes us victims. Are you ready to take control of this situation?" "More than ready. The ship has limited Wi-Fi, and we've confirmed that Brian and Rachel haven't been actively checking social media," Jennifer explained. "The investigators say most passengers only get online briefly to post vacation photos, then go back to enjoying their cruise activities. Plus, the ship's Wi-Fi is expensive and slow, so people tend to limit their usage." Marcus had spent considerable time thinking about their approach. Simply exposing the affair wouldn't be enough. Rachel and Brian would find a way to spin the narrative, to minimize their betrayal and paint themselves as victims of their spouse's vindictiveness. No, Marcus wanted something more comprehensive. He wanted Rachel to experience the same humiliation and helplessness that he had felt when he discovered her betrayal. He wanted her to understand what it felt like to have your life destroyed by someone you trusted. That evening, after putting Emma and Tyler to bed, Marcus sat in his home office and opened Rachel's laptop. She had left it behind, claiming she only needed her tablet for the conference. Over the years, Rachel had often asked Marcus to help her with various online tasks when her laptop was acting up, so he knew her passwords and had used her devices many times before. Their home Wi-Fi would recognize the laptop as a trusted device. Rachel had always been trusting with her passwords, using the same combination for most accounts. It took Marcus less than 5 minutes to access her Facebook account from her own laptop. He scrolled through her recent posts, carefully curated images of their family life, cheerful updates about work projects, and loving comments about their marriage. To anyone reading her social media, Rachel Sullivan appeared to be a devoted wife and mother living a picture-perfect life. Marcus felt sick reading her posts from the past year. While she was carrying on her affair with Brian, she had been posting anniversary tributes to their marriage, proud moments about their children, and grateful reflections on their blessed life together. Every single post was a lie. Marcus opened a new browser window and logged into the cloud storage account he had created. The private investigators had set up a system to transfer photos periodically when they had Wi-Fi access at ports. The latest batch transferred that morning before the ship departed Nassau showed Rachel and Brian at the ship's formal dining room, dressed for dinner and gazing into each other's eyes across a table set for two. Marcus downloaded the most damning images and began crafting his masterpiece. He started with a photo of Rachel and Brian sharing what appeared to be an intimate conversation over dinner. Rachel was leaning across the table, her hand covering Brian's, both of them smiling like lovers. Marcus uploaded the image to Rachel's Facebook account and began typing, "I've been keeping a secret from everyone, and I can't hide it any longer. I know this will shock my friends and family, but I need to be honest about my life. This wonderful man is Brian Walsh, and I've been in love with him for over a year. I know it is complicated because we're both married to other people, but sometimes the heart wants what it wants." Marcus paused, considering his next words carefully. He wanted the post to sound like Rachel's voice, her tendency toward oversharing, her dramatic flair for emotional revelations. "I've tried to fight these feelings, but Brian and I have such a deep connection that I've never experienced before. We're currently on a romantic cruise together, and I've never been happier. I know some people will judge us, but I believe in following your heart, even when it is difficult. Marcus is a good man and father, but Brian and I have something special that I can't deny anymore." Marcus added a few more photos from the cruise, Rachel and Brian holding hands on the deck, sharing drinks by the pool, embracing as they watched the sunset. He made sure to tag Brian in each image and include location data showing they were on the cruise ship. Before publishing the post, Marcus added one final paragraph. "I know this news will be hard for some people to accept, but I hope my friends and family will support my happiness. Life is too short to live a lie. I am finally ready to be authentic about who I am and what I want." More photos and updates to come. Live your truth. Follow your heart. New beginnings. Marcus stared at the screen for several minutes, his finger hovering over the share button. Once he posted this, there would be no going back. Rachel's reputation, her relationships with friends and family, her standing in their community, all of it would be destroyed in a matter of hours. But then he remembered the photos of her laughing with Brian, the year of lies she had told him, the way she had kissed him goodbye that morning while planning to spend 4 days with her lover. Marcus clicked share. Within minutes, the post began generating responses. Rachel's friends and family members started commenting with shock, confusion, and outrage. Marcus watched the comments pour in with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. "Rachel, what the hell is this? Her sister Carla, this can't be real. Please tell me someone hacked your account. Her college roommate. I can't believe you would do this to Marcus and the children. Their neighbor, this is so unlike you, Rachel. What is going on?" Her coworker Marcus's phone began ringing almost immediately. He let every call go to voicemail, knowing that word of Rachel's confession was spreading through their social circle like wildfire. By morning, everyone they knew would believe that Rachel had voluntarily publicized her affair and abandoned her family for another man. But Marcus wasn't finished. Jennifer had provided him with additional ammunition, copies of text messages between Rachel and Brian, planning their cruise and discussing their feelings for each other. Marcus compiled the most damning excerpts into another Facebook post. "I know some people are asking for proof about Brian and my relationship, so I want to share some of our private conversations. I think they show how deeply we care about each other." He included screenshots of text messages. "Brian, I can't wait to have you all to myself for 4 days. No more sneaking around, no more pretending. Rachel, I know. Sometimes, I wish we could just run away together and forget about everything else. Brian, Marcus is lucky to have had you for so long, but he doesn't appreciate what he has. I would never take you for granted. Rachel, you make me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. I love my children, but I need more than just being a wife and mother. Marcus added a caption. Brian understands me in a way that Marcus never has. These conversations show why I had to follow my heart, even though it means hurting people I care about. But I can't live a lie anymore. As Marcus published the second post, his landline began ringing. The caller ID showed his mother-in-law's number. He let it ring. Over the next hour, Marcus received dozens of calls, text messages, and voicemails from friends, family members, and neighbors. He ignored them all, let them believe Rachel had lost her mind, and decided to publicly humiliate her husband and children. By the time she returned from her cruise and tried to explain what had really happened, the damage would be irreversible. Marcus poured himself a glass of wine and sat back to watch the digital destruction unfold. Rachel's Facebook post had been shared dozens of times, and the comments were becoming increasingly harsh. Her professional contacts from Meridian Construction were beginning to weigh in, expressing shock and disappointment. Even Brian's colleagues were commenting, having been tagged in the photos. Around midnight, Marcus's phone rang with a call from Jennifer. How are you holding up? She asked. Better than I expected. How are you? I am watching the Facebook drama from here. My God, Marcus. This is even more effective than we planned. Brian's family is calling me, asking if I've seen what Rachel posted. His mother is beside herself. Marcus felt a moment of uncertainty. Do you think we're going too far? Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Marcus, let me ask you something. If someone had shown you photos of Rachel and Brian together 6 months ago, would you have wanted to know the truth? Of course. And if someone had told you they were planning to go on a romantic cruise while lying to you about a business conference, would you have wanted to stop it? Absolutely. Then we're not going too far. We're just making sure everyone knows the truth about what they're doing. They chose to have this affair. They chose to lie to their families. They chose to go on this cruise. All we're doing is making their choices public. Marcus nodded, though Jennifer couldn't see him. You are right. They made this bed. Exactly. And tomorrow we're going to give them some more bedding to lie in. The next morning brought a fresh wave of chaos. Rachel's Facebook posts had been shared across multiple social media platforms, and local gossip websites had picked up the story. Atlanta insurance agent's wife publicizes affair on social media, read one headline. Meridian Construction executive caught in public affair scandal, read another. Marcus dropped Emma and Tyler at school, fielding sympathetic looks from other parents who had clearly seen the Facebook posts. He offered no explanations, simply smiled politely, and went about his normal routine. At work, his colleagues treated him with the careful kindness reserved for victims of public humiliation. Marcus appreciated their concern, but felt oddly detached from their sympathy. He wasn't a victim anymore. He was an agent of justice. Jennifer texted him around noon, new photos coming in. These are even better. The latest batch of surveillance photos showed Rachel and Brian in various stages of intimacy around the cruise ship. They were clearly comfortable with public displays of affection, holding hands, kissing, and embracing as they moved from the pool to the dining room to their private cabin. Marcus selected the most revealing images and prepared his third Facebook post. This time he decided to escalate the emotional manipulation. Day 2 of our cruise. And I am overwhelmed by how free I feel. Brian and I spent the whole day together, and I keep thinking about how different my life could be. Sometimes I wonder if I settled too quickly with Marcus. I was young when we got married, and maybe I didn't know what real love could feel like. He uploaded photos of Rachel and Brian kissing by the ship's pool and dancing close together at the evening entertainment. I know some people are angry with me for being public about this, but I am tired of hiding. Brian makes me feel beautiful and desired in a way I haven't felt in years. I know it is selfish, but I deserve to be happy too. The kids will understand someday that mommy needs more than just being a wife and mother." Marcus added one final line, planning to post more photos tomorrow. "This cruise is showing me what my life could really be like. Number no regrets, number new life, number true love." The response to this post was even more explosive than the previous ones within their social circle. Rachel's mother called Marcus's office directly, sobbing about how she couldn't understand what had happened to her daughter. Neighbors began gathering in small groups on their street, clearly discussing a local scandal. Most concerning to Marcus was the response from Meridian Construction. According to Jennifer, several of Rachel and Brian's colleagues had seen the posts through mutual social media connections, and word was spreading quickly through the company. Brian might not only lose his marriage, he might lose his job as well. That evening, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Rachel's sister Carla knocked on his door around 8 o'clock, holding a bottle of wine and wearing an expression of profound sympathy. "Marcus, I am so sorry," she said as he let her in. "I've been trying to reach Rachel all day, but her phone goes straight to voicemail. I can't understand what has gotten into her." Marcus accepted Carla's hug and her wine, playing the role of the devastated husband perfectly. "I don't understand it either, Carla. She seemed fine when she left for her conference. I had no idea she was feeling this way about our marriage." "A conference?" Carla laughed bitterly. "Marcus, she is on a cruise ship with another man, posting pictures of them together on Facebook." "What kind of conference is that?" "I guess it wasn't a conference after all," Marcus said quietly. Carla spent an hour expressing her outrage at her sister's behavior and her sympathy for Marcus's situation. She offered to watch the children if he needed time to process everything, assured him that Rachel's entire family was appalled by her conduct, and promised to support him through whatever came next. After Carla left, Marcus felt a moment of genuine sadness. Rachel's family was truly baffled and hurt by what they believed was her voluntary public confession. They couldn't understand how the Rachel they knew, the devoted mother and loyal wife, could have transformed into someone who would abandon her family and broadcast her infidelity on social media. But Marcus reminded himself that Rachel had made these choices. She had chosen to have the affair, chosen to lie to everyone who loved her, and chosen to go on this cruise, while pretending it was a business trip. All Marcus had done was make her choices visible to the people she had been deceiving. But the most damaging revelation came from their dining and deck activities. The private investigators, posing as fellow passengers, had managed to capture photos of Rachel and Brian in various public displays of affection around the cruise ship. The photos showed them clearly comfortable with public intimacy, holding hands, embracing, and acting like a couple, completely unaware they were being watched. Marcus selected the most revealing images of their public behavior and prepared his third Facebook post. "I can't help myself. I have to share this beautiful moment with Brian from last night. I know some people will think this is too private to post, but I've spent so many years hiding my true feelings that I want to celebrate this connection. This is what real passion looks like. This is what it feels like to be truly desired." He continued, "I keep thinking about what I'll tell Emma and Tyler when I get home. How do I explain that mommy found someone who loves her better than daddy ever did? I know it will be hard for them, but children are resilient. Maybe this will teach them to never settle for less than true love." The photos and accompanying text broke the internet. Within hours, they had been shared thousands of times across multiple platforms. Local news websites picked up the story, and Marcus began receiving calls from reporters asking for comment on his wife's very public affair. Rachel's professional reputation was completely destroyed. Meridian Construction released a statement distancing themselves from the situation and announcing that both Rachel and Brian had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Their clients were asking to be transferred to different account managers, and the company's executive team was reportedly furious about the public relations nightmare. But the most heartbreaking responses came from Emma and Tyler's school. Other parents had seen the posts, and word was spreading among the children. Marcus realized he would need to have a serious conversation with his kids before they heard about their mother's behavior from classmates. That evening, Marcus sat down with Emma and Tyler in their living room. He had rehearsed this conversation dozens of times. But now, looking at their innocent faces, he struggled to find the words. "Kids, I need to talk to you about Mommy's trip. Is Mommy coming home tomorrow?" Emma asked hopefully. "Yes, sweetheart, Mommy is coming home. But when she gets here, things might be different." Tyler, who was playing with his toy trucks on the floor, looked up with confusion. "Different how?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Mommy has made some choices that have hurt our family. She has been spending time with someone who isn't Daddy, and that is not okay when you are married." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Is Mommy in trouble? It is complicated, baby. But I want you both to know that no matter what happens, Daddy loves you very much, and Mommy loves you too. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes can change how families work." "Are you and Mommy getting divorced?" Emma asked, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus felt his heart break. "I don't know yet, sweetheart. But if that happens, it doesn't mean either of us loves you any less. You and Tyler are the most important thing in the world to both of us." Tyler abandoned his trucks and climbed onto Marcus's lap. "I don't want things to be different." "I know, buddy. I don't want that either." Marcus held both of his children close, feeling the full weight of what Rachel's choices had cost them. These innocent kids were about to become casualties in an adult war they had never asked for. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the Caribbean, Rachel was blissfully unaware that her life had been completely destroyed. She and Brian were enjoying their final day on the cruise, making plans for their future together, and discussing how they would handle revealing their relationship to their families when they returned. They had no idea that the conversation had already happened for them, courtesy of their voluntary Facebook confessions. They didn't know that their families, friends, and colleagues had spent 3 days processing the news of their affair and making decisions about how to respond. Rachel thought she would return to Atlanta and figure out how to gradually transition from her marriage to her relationship with Brian. She imagined careful conversations with Marcus about their relationship, thoughtful discussions about custody arrangements, and a civilized divorce process that would allow her to maintain her reputation and relationships. She had no idea she would be returning to a life that no longer existed. On Thursday morning, the cruise ship began its journey back to Miami. According to their itinerary, Rachel and Brian would dock Friday morning and catch afternoon flights back to Atlanta. They planned to return to work on Monday as if nothing had happened, resuming their careful deception while they figured out how to publicly transition from their marriages to each other. Marcus spent Thursday preparing for Rachel's return. He had consulted with a divorce attorney who had advised him to document everything and avoid any actions that could be construed as vindictive or manipulative. Of course, the attorney had no idea that Marcus had already spent 3 days systematically destroying his wife's reputation through carefully crafted social media posts. Marcus also spent time preparing Emma and Tyler for the changes that were coming. He arranged for his mother to visit the following week to provide extra support for the children, and he began researching child therapists who specialized in helping kids cope with divorce. That evening, Jennifer called with an update. "Marcus, I've been watching the news coverage of this story. It is bigger than we expected." Rachel's social media confession has become a case study in how not to handle an extramarital affair. There are think pieces being written about it, relationship experts are commenting on it, and it is trending on multiple platforms. Marcus felt a moment of concern. "Maybe we should have thought about this more carefully." "No," Jennifer said firmly. "Rachel chose to have this affair. She chose to lie to you for a year. She chose to go on this cruise while pretending it was a business conference. All we did was accelerate the timeline for everyone finding out the truth. I know you are right. It is just seeing it play out like this, seeing how it is affecting the kids. The kids are going to be affected no matter what, Marcus. At least this way, everyone knows exactly who made the choices that broke up your family. There is no ambiguity about who is responsible." Jennifer was right, but Marcus still felt the weight of what they had unleashed. Rachel would return home to find her life in ruins, her reputation destroyed, her relationships shattered, and her children confused and hurt. He had set out to make her face consequences for her betrayal, and he had succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. Friday morning arrived gray and rainy, matching Marcus's mood. According to the flight information he had found in Rachel's email, she would land at Hartsfield-Jackson around 4 in the afternoon. Marcus arranged for his mother to pick up the children from school and keep them for the evening, knowing that Rachel's homecoming would not be pleasant. Around noon, Marcus's phone rang with a call from an unknown number. "Hello." "Marcus." "Oh, thank God." It was Rachel's voice, but she sounded panicked and breathless. "Marcus, something terrible has happened. I just got back to Miami and got full internet access, and there are things posted on my Facebook account that I never wrote. I've been trying to understand what is happening, but I have hundreds of messages and missed calls. Please tell me you know I didn't post those things." Marcus had been preparing for this call, but hearing the genuine terror in Rachel's voice made his stomach lurch. "Rachel, where are you? I am on the ship, but we're docking in Miami in a few hours." "Marcus, please tell me you know these Facebook posts aren't real. Please tell me you didn't believe them." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his response. "Rachel, the posts show you on a cruise ship with Brian Walsh. Are you telling me that is not real either?" The silence on Rachel's end stretched for several seconds. "Marcus, how do you know about Brian?" "The same way everyone else knows about Brian. Your very detailed Facebook posts about your affair." "I never posted anything about Brian." "Marcus, I swear to God someone has hacked my account and posted fake things. Please, you have to believe me." Marcus felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and pity. Rachel was finally experiencing the helplessness and confusion he had felt when he discovered her betrayal. "Rachel, I've seen the photos and evidence. You are clearly on a cruise ship with another man. Whether you posted them yourself or someone else did, the evidence speaks for itself." "Evidence? What evidence?" "Marcus, what the hell is going on? A private investigator hired by Brian's wife has been documenting your affair for weeks. Rachel, everything is documented: your hotel meetings, your business trip together, your text messages, your emails, and now your romantic cruise." Marcus could hear Rachel crying on the other end of the line. "Oh God, this is a nightmare. Marcus, please. I know I made mistakes, but I never wanted it to come out like this. I never wanted to hurt you or the children like this. But you did want to hurt us, Rachel. Every time you chose to continue the affair, every time you lied to my face, every time you planned another meeting with Brian, those were all choices to hurt us. Marcus, please, can we talk when I get home? Can you please take down those Facebook posts? My whole family has seen them. My mother called me crying. My sister won't even speak to me. My coworkers. Oh God, my job. I can't take down the posts, Rachel, because I didn't put them up. According to everyone who has seen them, you posted them yourself. But I didn't, Marcus. You have to believe me. What I believe doesn't matter anymore, Rachel. What matters is that everyone now knows the truth about what you've been doing." The call ended with Rachel sobbing and begging Marcus to help her fix the situation. But Marcus knew there was no fixing this. Rachel had burned her life down with her own choices. The Facebook posts had simply provided the matches. As Marcus sat in his empty house waiting for Rachel's return, he reflected on the events of the past week. He had set out to make Rachel face consequences for her betrayal, and he had succeeded completely. Her reputation was destroyed, her relationships were shattered, her career was in jeopardy, and her children were confused and hurt. But Marcus realized that revenge, even perfectly executed revenge, couldn't heal the wound Rachel had created in their family. It couldn't restore the trust she had broken, undo the lies she had told, or give Emma and Tyler their innocence back. What it had done was ensure that everyone knew exactly what had happened to their marriage, and who was responsible for destroying it. When people asked why Marcus and Rachel divorced, there would be no ambiguity, no competing narratives, no questions about who was the victim and who was the perpetrator. Rachel had chosen to betray her family. Now she would live with the consequences of that choice for the rest of her life. As the afternoon faded into evening, Marcus prepared himself for Rachel's arrival. Their marriage was over. Had been over the moment she chose to start her affair with Brian. But there would still be details to work out. Custody arrangements, financial settlements, living situations. But first, Rachel would have to confront the reality of what her choices had cost her. She would have to face the wreckage of the life she had built and destroyed. She would have to explain to her children why Mommy had made choices that broke their family apart. Marcus had spent a year being the unknowing victim of Rachel's deception, but that chapter of their story was over. Now Rachel would discover what it felt like to be the one left powerless, humiliated, and alone. Friday evening arrived with the weight of impending confrontation. Marcus had spent the day in a strange state of calm, knowing that Rachel would soon return to face the wreckage of her choices. The house felt different now, no longer the warm family home they had built together, but rather a stage where the final act of their marriage would play out. Around 6 o'clock, Marcus heard the familiar sound of Rachel's Honda Accord pulling into their driveway. He stood at the living room window, watching as she sat in her car for several minutes before finally emerging. Even from a distance, he could see the change in her posture. The confident woman who had left for her romantic getaway had been replaced by someone who moved with the hesitant steps of the defeated. Rachel walked slowly toward the front door, her luggage trailing behind her. She had clearly been crying during her flight home. Her face was puffy and her eyes red-rimmed. When she reached the door, she seemed to steel herself before turning her key in the lock. "Marcus," she called softly as she entered. "Are you here?" "I am in the living room," he replied. Rachel appeared in the doorway, and Marcus was struck by how small she looked. The vibrant, glowing woman from the cruise photos had vanished, replaced by someone who appeared fragile and broken. "Where are the children?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "At my mother's house. I thought it would be better if we talked privately first." Rachel nodded and set down her purse with shaking hands. "Marcus, we need to talk about those Facebook posts. I swear to God, I never wrote those things. Someone hacked my account and Rachel, stop." Marcus's voice was calm but firm. "We both know you didn't post those things yourself. But we also both know that everything in those posts was true." Rachel's composure cracked completely. She sank onto the edge of the sofa, her face in her hands. "Oh God, Marcus, I am so sorry. I know you'll never believe me, but I never meant for it to happen like this." "How did you mean for it to happen, Rachel? What was your plan?" She looked up at him with desperate eyes. "I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. Brian and we never planned for it to go this far. It just happened, and then we couldn't figure out how to stop it." Marcus felt a familiar surge of anger. Even now, in the face of complete destruction, Rachel was still trying to minimize her choices. "You couldn't figure out how to stop having an affair. It is actually quite simple, Rachel. You just stop. I know how it sounds, but you don't understand what it was like. Brian made me feel." She trailed off, perhaps realizing that describing her feelings for her lover wasn't the wisest approach. "What, Rachel? Brian made you feel what?" "Alive," she whispered. "He made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years." The honesty of her answer hit Marcus like a physical blow. It confirmed what he had suspected, but hoped wasn't true, that Rachel hadn't just made a mistake or succumbed to momentary temptation. She had actively chosen a relationship that fulfilled her in ways their marriage apparently couldn't. "So our marriage made you feel dead?" Marcus asked. "No, that is not what I meant. I love you, Marcus. I love our life, our children, our home. But with Brian I felt special, desired, like I was more than just a wife and mother." Marcus stared at his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt a strange mixture of pity and disgust. "Rachel, do you understand what you've destroyed? Not just our marriage, but everything. Your relationship with your family, your career, your reputation in this community." Rachel's shoulders shook with fresh sobs. "I've been getting calls and texts all day. My mother won't speak to me. Carla hung up on me. My boss called to tell me not to come in on Monday while they assess the situation. The school called asking if Emma and Tyler are okay because parents have been asking questions. She looked up at Marcus with pleading eyes. Please, you have to help me fix this. You have to tell people that I didn't write those posts. You have to help me explain that it wasn't supposed to happen like this. Marcus sat down in the chair across from her, maintaining physical distance between them. Rachel, I can't fix this for you. And even if I could, I wouldn't. You made choices that led to this situation. Now you have to live with the consequences. But the children, Marcus, think about Emma and Tyler. They're going to grow up hearing about this. Their friends will know their mother was. She couldn't bring herself to say the word. A cheater, Marcus finished for her. Yes, Rachel, they will, because that is what you are. The harshness of his words seemed to shock her. Marcus, please, I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll never see Brian again. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Marcus studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine understanding about what she had done. Rachel, you had a year-long affair. You lied to me every single day for a year. You went on business trips with your lover. You planned a romantic cruise while telling me it was a conference. You sat at our dinner table, helped our children with their homework, made love to me, all while carrying on a relationship with another man. Do you really think counseling can fix that? People get through affairs, Marcus. I know it will take time, but we can rebuild our marriage if we both commit to. No, Marcus interrupted. We can't, because I will never be able to trust you again. Every time you are 5 minutes late, every time you get a text message, every time you have to work late or travel for business, I'll wonder if you are with someone else. That is no way to live. Rachel was crying freely now, mascara running down her cheeks. So that is it. You are just going to throw away 10 years of marriage because I made a mistake. You made hundreds of mistakes, Rachel. Every lie you told me was a choice. Every time you met Brian for lunch was a choice. Every hotel room was a choice. Every text message, every email, every moment of that cruise, all choices. You didn't make one mistake. You made a year's worth of deliberate decisions to betray our family. The truth of his words seemed to penetrate Rachel's defenses. She sat in silence for several minutes, perhaps finally grasping the magnitude of what she had done. She asked quietly, now you need to find somewhere else to live while we work out the divorce details. I've already spoken with an attorney, and I'll be filing papers next week. Marcus, please, can't we at least try? No, Rachel, it is over. The only thing left to discuss is custody arrangements and how we're going to explain this to Emma and Tyler. Rachel looked around their living room, as if seeing it for the last time. This is my home too, Marcus. You can't just kick me out. Actually, I can ask you to leave. My attorney has advised me that given the circumstances, the documented adultery, the public nature of the situation, and the need to provide stability for the children during this transition, it would be appropriate for us to establish separate residences while we work out permanent arrangements. And if I refuse, Marcus met her eyes steadily, then we'll let the courts decide on custody arrangements. The evidence of your affair is extensive, Rachel. A judge will want to know why you chose to go on a romantic cruise while leaving your children behind. The court will consider what is in the best interests of Emma and Tyler. The implied threat was clear. Rachel could leave voluntarily and maintain some dignity, or she could fight and risk losing access to her children altogether. How long do I have? She asked. I've been generous. You can stay through the weekend to pack your things and say goodbye to the children. I want you gone by Monday morning. Rachel's face crumpled. Where am I supposed to go? I honestly don't know, Rachel. Maybe Brian can help you figure that out, since he is the one you chose over your family. The cruelty of the comment hit its mark, and Rachel flinched as if she'd been slapped. Brian won't even talk to me. His wife served him with divorce papers at the airport. His company put him on administrative leave. He blames me for everything falling apart. Marcus felt a moment of satisfaction. So when things got difficult, Brian abandoned you. How romantic. It is not like that. He needs time to figure things out. Just like you needed time to figure out whether to stay faithful to your husband. Rachel stood up abruptly, anger flashing in her eyes. You don't understand what it was like, Marcus. You worked all the time. You never really talked to me anymore. You took me for granted. I felt invisible in my own marriage. Marcus stood as well, his own anger finally breaking through his controlled facade. So instead of talking to me about it, instead of suggesting counseling, instead of working on our problems like adults, you decided to have an affair. You felt invisible, so you made our entire marriage invisible by replacing it with a lie. I tried to talk to you. You were always busy with work or tired or focused on the kids. When was I supposed to get your attention? How about before you started sleeping with another man, Rachel? How about before you decided our marriage vows meant nothing? They stood facing each other across their living room, both breathing hard, the weight of a year's worth of deception and betrayal hanging between them. You know what the worst part is, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. It is not even the affair. It is the fact that you are still trying to make this my fault. You are still looking for excuses, still trying to justify what you did instead of taking responsibility for it. Rachel's anger deflated as quickly as it had risen. I am not trying to justify it. I know what I did was wrong. I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it, Rachel. That is what you don't understand. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired. Some betrayals are too fundamental to overcome. Some lies are too deep to forgive. Rachel sank back onto the sofa, looking utterly defeated. So what happens to us? What happens to our family? We're not a family anymore, Rachel. We're two people who share children and are trying to figure out how to co-parent after one of us destroyed everything we built together. The finality in Marcus's voice seemed to break something inside Rachel. She began crying again, but these weren't the angry tears of before. These were tears of grief, of loss, of recognition that her choices had consequences she hadn't fully considered. I loved you, she whispered. I still love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have betrayed me, Marcus replied. If you loved our family, you wouldn't have risked destroying it for a romantic adventure with another woman's husband. Rachel looked up at him through her tears. Can you ever forgive me? Marcus considered her question seriously. Maybe someday I can forgive you for my own peace of mind, but I can never forget what you did and I can never trust you again. And without trust, there is no marriage. They sat in heavy silence as the weight of their conversation settled around them. Outside, the sun was setting over their neighborhood, casting long shadows across the living room where they had once planned their future together. I should go pack, Rachel said finally. Marcus nodded. I'll pick up the children tomorrow morning. You can spend the day with them, but I want you to tell them the truth about why you are leaving. What am I supposed to say? That mommy made choices that hurt our family? That is exactly what you should say. They deserve honesty, Rachel, even if it comes a year too late. Rachel stood and gathered her purse, moving like someone in a daze. As she reached the doorway, she turned back to look at Marcus one last time. I really am sorry, Marcus. I know that doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that I never meant for it to end like this. I believe you never meant to get caught, Marcus replied, but I don't believe you never meant to hurt me. Every time you chose to continue the affair, you chose to hurt me. You just thought I'd never find out. Rachel had no answer for that. She climbed the stairs to their bedroom, their former bedroom, to begin the process of dismantling the life she had destroyed. Marcus remained in the living room, listening to the sounds of Rachel moving around upstairs, opening drawers, closing closets, packing the remnants of their marriage into suitcases. The anger that had sustained him through the past week was gradually giving way to a profound sadness. Not for his marriage, which he now knew had been built on lies, but for the family they might have been if Rachel had made different choices. Rachel spent that night in the guest room, and the next morning, Marcus arranged for his mother to bring Emma and Tyler home so they could say goodbye to their mother before she left. The children were excited to see their mother, running to hug her when they arrived home. Rachel held them tightly, and Marcus could see her fighting back tears as she realized this might be her last normal moment with them for a long time. "Mommy, why do you have suitcases?" Emma asked, noticing the luggage by the front door. Rachel looked at Marcus, silently asking for help, but he remained firm. This conversation was her responsibility. "Kids, come sit with me on the couch," Rachel said, her voice shaking slightly. "I need to tell you something important." Emma and Tyler settled on either side of their mother, looking up at her with trusting eyes. Marcus's heart broke for them, knowing their innocence was about to be shattered. "You know how sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," Rachel began. "Like when you break something?" Tyler asked. "Sort of like that, honey. But bigger. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt the people they love, even when they don't mean to." Emma was watching her mother's face intently. "What kind of choices, Mommy?" Rachel took a shaky breath. "I made some choices that hurt Daddy, and because of those choices, I can't live here with you anymore." "But why?" Emma's voice was small and confused. "Don't you love us anymore?" "Oh, sweetheart, I love you both more than anything in the whole world. This has nothing to do with how much I love you. This is about choices I made that hurt our family." Tyler climbed into Rachel's lap, wrapping his small arms around her neck. "I don't want you to go away, Mommy." Rachel held him close, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to go away either, buddy. But sometimes when grown-ups make big mistakes, they have consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Emma asked. Rachel looked at Marcus again, but his expression remained impassive. She was on her own. "The consequence is that Daddy and I are going to get divorced, which means we won't be married anymore. And I am going to live somewhere else while we figure out how to make sure you both still get to spend lots of time with both of us." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Like Tommy's parents." Rachel nodded. Tommy was a classmate whose parents had divorced the previous year. "Yes, sweetheart, like Tommy's parents. But Tommy's daddy moved away," Emma said. "Are you moving away too?" "I am not moving far away, baby. I'll still be here in Atlanta, and you'll still see me all the time. We'll have sleepovers, and go to dinner and do fun things together. It'll just be different." Tyler pulled back to look at his mother's face. "Did you break something really important?" Rachel's voice caught in her throat. "Yes, honey. I broke something really important. Can't you fix it?" "Some things can't be fixed once they're broken, Tyler. Like if you broke Daddy's favorite mug into a million pieces. Even if you glued it back together, it would never be the same." Emma was crying now too. "I don't want you and Daddy to be broken." "I know, sweetheart. I don't want that either. But sometimes grown-ups make choices that break things, and then they have to live with those choices." Marcus intervened gently. "Kids, I want you to know that none of this is your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. This is about choices that grown-ups made, and you are both going to be loved and taken care of no matter what." "Will we still live here with you, Daddy?" Emma asked. "Yes, you'll live here with me most of the time, and you'll visit with Mommy regularly. We're going to make sure you are safe and happy and that you get to spend time with both of us." Rachel spent the rest of the day trying to make normal memories with the children, playing games, reading stories, and having a picnic lunch in the backyard. But there was a forced quality to their interactions, an underlying sadness that even the children could sense. When evening came, it was time for the goodbye that none of them wanted to face. "I have to go now," Rachel said, kneeling down to hug Emma and Tyler one last time. "When will we see you again?" Emma asked. "Very soon, baby. Daddy and I are going to work out a schedule so you can visit me and we can do fun things together." "Will you call us?" Tyler asked. "Every day if Daddy says it is okay," Marcus nodded. Despite everything, he wouldn't keep the children from their mother. "You can call them every evening at 7 o'clock. Rachel hugged her children fiercely, whispering promises and reassurances while trying not to break down completely in front of them. Marcus watched from the doorway, feeling the full weight of what her choices had cost their family. Finally, Rachel gathered her suitcases and walked toward the front door. Emma and Tyler clung to Marcus, watching their mother leave with confusion and sadness. "Bye, Mommy," Tyler whispered. Bye, babies. I love you both so much. Rachel looked back at Marcus one final time. Thank you for not making this harder than it had to be. Marcus nodded but didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. After Rachel left, Marcus spent the evening comforting his children and trying to establish a new normal for their family. He ordered pizza for dinner, let them stay up late, and assured them repeatedly that they were loved and safe. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Rachel worked out a custody arrangement that allowed her to see the children every other weekend and one evening per week. Rachel found a small apartment across town and slowly began rebuilding her life from the ground up. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly civil, though Rachel did initially consult with her own attorney about custody arrangements. However, when her lawyer reviewed the evidence and explained the likely outcomes, Rachel chose not to fight Marcus on the major issues. The documented affair and the public nature of the situation had left her with limited leverage, and prolonging the process would only cause more pain for the children. Brian's marriage had also ended, but unlike Marcus and Rachel, Brian and Jennifer's divorce was acrimonious. Jennifer had been far less forgiving of her husband's betrayal, and their proceedings dragged on for months with disputes over property, alimony, and custody of their adult children's loyalty. Ironically, Brian and Rachel's relationship didn't survive the destruction of their marriages, though for more complex reasons than simple abandonment. The stress of the public exposure, the loss of their jobs, and the legal proceedings created enormous pressure on their relationship. Without the excitement of secrecy and the thrill of forbidden love, they discovered their connection had been more about the affair itself than about each other. Both were dealing with their own guilt and family pressures, and neither had the emotional resources to support the other through the crisis they had created. Marcus found himself oddly satisfied by this development. It confirmed what he had suspected, that Rachel's affair had been more about the excitement of deception than about genuine love for Brian. She had destroyed their marriage for what amounted to a fantasy. As months passed, Marcus began to rebuild his own life. He focused on his work, spent quality time with Emma and Tyler, and slowly started to feel like himself again. The anger that had consumed him during those first weeks gradually faded, replaced by a kind of resigned acceptance. Rachel, meanwhile, struggled with the aftermath of her choices. Her relationship with her family remained strained. Her mother spoke to her only when necessary, and her sister Carla had cut off contact entirely. Her career never recovered from the public scandal. Meridian Construction had quietly let her go, and other employers were reluctant to hire someone whose personal drama had become local news. She found work at a smaller firm for less money, though not primarily because of the scandal. The local business community had largely moved on from the social media drama. Rather, the gap in her employment and the circumstances of leaving Meridian had limited her options. 1 year after their divorce was finalized, Rachel made an unexpected decision. She wrote a public apology on Facebook, a genuine one this time, taking responsibility for her actions. I know a lot of you have been wondering what happened to me last year, she wrote. The truth is, I made some really bad choices that hurt a lot of people I care about. A year ago, those choices became public in a way I never intended. But the affair itself was real, and it was my fault. I am not going to make excuses or try to explain why I did what I did, because honestly, I am still trying to figure that out myself. I just know that I was selfish and I hurt my family, especially Marcus and my kids. Marcus didn't deserve what I put him through. He was a good husband and he is an amazing father. I messed up big time, and I know some of you probably think I don't deserve forgiveness. You might be right about that. I am just trying to be a better person now and a better mom to Emma and Tyler. I hope someday they'll understand that what I did was wrong, and it had nothing to do with them. I am sorry to everyone I disappointed. I know this doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it. The post was much shorter and less polished than her previous writing, but it felt genuine. Most comments were supportive, though some remained critical. Marcus read it but didn't respond publicly. That evening, however, he did something unexpected. He sent Rachel a private message. I saw your post. Thank you for finally being honest about what happened. It doesn't change the past, but it shows respect for the truth. Rachel responded immediately. I should have been honest from the beginning. About everything. I am sorry it took me this long to say that publicly. We can't change what happened, Marcus wrote back, but we can make sure Emma and Tyler grow up knowing that actions have consequences and that taking responsibility is important, even when it is difficult. I want to be the mother they deserve, Rachel replied, even if I wasn't the wife you deserved. Marcus stared at her message for a long time before responding. The kids love you, Rachel. They need you to be the best version of yourself, not the person you were during the affair. It was the most honest conversation they'd had since her return from the cruise, and it marked a subtle shift in their relationship. They would never be friends, and Marcus would never forgive the betrayal, but they could perhaps be effective co-parents who treated each other with basic respect. Over time, Rachel did become a better mother. She was more present during her time with the children, more honest about her mistakes, and more committed to earning back their trust. She started therapy, joined a support group for people rebuilding their lives after infidelity, and slowly began to understand the depth of damage her choices had caused. Marcus also grew from the experience. He learned that revenge, while satisfying in the moment, didn't heal the wounds of betrayal. What helped was time, therapy, and the gradual rebuilding of a life based on his own values, rather than reaction to Rachel's choices. The children adapted as children do, finding ways to love both parents while accepting that their family would never be the same. They spent weekdays with Marcus and weekends with Rachel, and slowly developed a new normal that, while different from what they'd known, still provided them with love and stability. 2 years after the divorce, Marcus began dating again. He was cautious, guarded, and unwilling to rush into anything serious. But he had learned that not everyone was capable of the kind of betrayal Rachel had committed, and that it was possible to trust again, albeit more carefully. Rachel remained single, focusing on her relationship with her children and her own healing. She had learned that the excitement she had sought in her affair was ultimately hollow, and that genuine happiness came from integrity, honesty, and authentic relationships. 7 years after their divorce, Marcus and Rachel attended Emma's 8th grade graduation together. They sat separately but cordially, both focused on celebrating their daughter's achievement. When Emma gave a speech about overcoming challenges, both parents felt the weight of their shared history. After the ceremony, as they watched Emma and Tyler with their respective friend groups, Rachel approached Marcus. "She is incredible," Rachel said, watching their daughter laugh with her classmates. "She is," Marcus agreed. "They both are." "Thank you," Rachel said quietly. "For what?" "For not letting my mistakes define their childhood. For being a good father even when I wasn't being a good mother. For putting them first when you had every right to put your anger first." Marcus looked at his ex-wife, really looked at her, for the first time in years. She appeared older, sadder, but somehow more genuine than the woman he had married. The affair had broken her as much as it had broken their marriage, but she had used that brokenness to become someone more honest about her flaws and limitations. They needed at least one parent who was thinking clearly, Marcus said. "I am glad you eventually became that parent too." It wasn't forgiveness. Marcus still felt the echo of betrayal when he looked at her, but it was acknowledgement that people could change, that mistakes could lead to growth, and that their children deserved parents who could treat each other with basic human dignity. As they watched Emma and Tyler play, both parents understood that their story would never have a happy ending in the traditional sense. Their marriage was over, their trust was permanently broken, and their family would always bear the scars of Rachel's choices. But perhaps that was enough, not happiness, but honesty, not reconciliation, but respect, not forgiveness, but the recognition that even in the wreckage of betrayal, it was possible to build something new, a different kind of family, based not on romantic love but on shared responsibility for the children they both loved. The Facebook posts that had destroyed Rachel's life were still there, archived in digital permanence, but they no longer defined her entire existence. She had learned to live with the consequences of her choices, while working to ensure that her future choices would be worthy of the children who still called her mom. And Marcus had learned that sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all, but the patient work of building a better life from the ashes of betrayal. not just for yourself, but for the innocent people who depend on you to be stronger than your pain. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.